This is Talking Law on Radio 97. Despina Priala is with us this morning. And Despina, everyone is concerned about their privacy online. And the ACCC, which is a government department, I guess a watchdog of sorts, they've won a big case against Google.
They have. It's very exciting for those who care about privacy, and I dare say we all do care about our privacy at one point or another.
And we should, as you've mentioned numerous times, because much of this stuff, well, no, pretty much everything that you put online will follow you around.
Well, it does, and we've talked so many times about that in the past at various different levels. So in Australia, we have the ACCC. So who are the ACCC? So this is the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, and they are the watchdog for misleading and deceptive conduct in particular by individuals or organisations. And we have had a world first case, which I'm very excited about. So in the federal court, it's been recently handed down that the ACCC has won against Google, the big giant. So it's always nice to see these wins.
A landmark decision.
Landmark decision. So it isn't
setting a precedent.
It will, but Google may appeal. So that's sort of something that people are talking about at the moment. Will they appeal? Will they not? So we'll have to find that out. But the decision's been handed down that ACCC have won against Google. What does that mean? So we are talking about a case of misleading and deceptive conduct against consumers like you and me, people who go and use Android devices that have phones, mobile phones, and it all centered around the locations data and how that's used as you go through and travel and go to places and use your locations data. So I'm sure everyone's aware of what that means.
Yeah, you would have seen it come on up on your phone from time to time. You know, Google would like to know where you are, all that sort of thing. And people thought that they had a choice, you know, as in, yes, that's fine, I'm happy for Google to track me and know where I am. But other people actually thought that they could turn it off.
That's right. So this was centred around the locations data and the privacy, and people were misled to because the idea was that they thought if they ticked locations data off, that meant that your locations then was not showing whilst you were in Google Maps. However, it was apparently showing whilst using other apps and other activity on your phone.
But only on Android phones?
Apparently, yes, it's on the Android devices, yes. So consumers weren't told that. And it was a big misleading and deceptive conduct case, which was now being decided that, Google did the wrong thing. They didn't actually explain to their consumers what it meant and how to make sure that their privacy was actually kept private in terms of locations data. So it is a world first, and I'm very pleased to hear that this has happened because conglomerates like Google who go out and, provide devices and obviously are receiving profits for selling all these sorts of equipment to people need to be able to explain to consumers at the basic level, how do you use the item that you're selling and what does it mean for your privacy? You can't just give someone a phone or a device and say, okay, well, this is how to ensure your locations data is kept private. But actually it wasn't, and people were going around assuming that they were doing the right thing and ticking, locations data off, and it actually wasn't the case at all. So their privacy was really, torn apart and misused.
And they'll probably have to address a few more paragraphs of terms and conditions when you go to purchase them.
Add another 20 pages of terms.
Yeah, well, that's right. So it'll be interesting to see what penalties will come out of this. So they haven't decided yet the types of penalties that Google will face as a result of the decision, which is interesting. So it's a landmark decision, as you said. So they're going to take their time and decide, well, what type of penalties are we talking about here? Obviously monetary penalties, but how high will they go?
Now, you said that the judgment has been made against Google, but it's always possible for Google to appeal against it.
That's right. So if they're going to appeal, we'll hear about it soon, no doubt. But until then, the decision stands. And we'll have to see what happens.
All right, so what does that actually mean for people who use the Android phones?
So what it means is that people will now have to go on to their settings under privacy, and I suspect that they will have to adjust it. So the best advice, I suppose, that I can give to consumers is that they go on to the ACCC website, where there is an article specifically on this case. And in this article, they talk about examples. So not everyone's as savvy as others in the use of your phones. We're always trying to keep up to date with apps and how to use various things to turn things on and turn things off. It can be a nightmare, and I understand that. So I think the best thing to do is to go onto the website, have a look at this article for yourself, and they give real life examples of things that you'll find on your phone where you can tick yes or tick no or tick various boxes. It'll help you navigate through your phone and how to change your settings now so you can truly have the privacy that you thought you had beforehand.
Well, the other thing is, of course, every phone's different. I mean, obviously, every manufacturer does things in different ways, and there are different ways to get into your settings and all that sort of thing. And then presumably some of them might even be marked in a different way. So really, whatever your phone is, you need to go and have a look at that. And maybe, I guess, if you can't find the info there,
it's a minefield.
And there's always plenty of info online too. YouTube videos and all sorts of things. How do I stop Google from monitoring me?
Well, that's right. But look, if you don't want to do that, just go into a store. I mean, it's like the banks,
Or ask a 5-year-old.
Well, ask a 5-year-old. Well, yes, if you have a teenage son or daughter, perhaps they can help you, or a niece or nephew.
Yeah.
But go into a store, go into an Optus store or a Telstra store or a phone shop and ask them to help you. I'm sure that they will. Maybe they don't even know about this case yet. So you could go in and say, oh, well, I've just found out about this case and I want my privacy settings returned. I'm a customer of Optus or Telstra or whoever, Vodafone, and come and help me, please, with my phone. And I'm sure that they will do that because some people like that face-to-face connection. It's like what I was saying before about banks. Banks are trying to steer people to do things online. Some people still want to go into the branch and they want to talk to someone behind the teller and say, okay, well, I need some help. It's the same thing with the phones. Why not? Go and hassle the staff that are getting paid by these companies to help their consumers.
Certainly.
Yeah, and because, not everyone is comfortable with technology. And some things that you might be able to do, some people are good at some things and some are not. So, yeah, it makes sense to bring along an expert or, as you say, find you a teenage daughter or son or cousin or nephew or niece or something.
I'm sure you'll find somebody. Particularly, what if you've inadvertently ticked the wrong box or pressed the wrong button on your phone and then you haven't got your privacy and it's all over for everyone to see where you are, all the time. I mean, also with this case, did you ever wonder why, when you were using your phone, that you received certain advertisements? When you're actually searching something online or where you're looking for something and all of a sudden something would pop up and it will be quite relevant to where you are, where you live. Did you ever wonder why?
I've never really had a problem with it because I knew holding a mobile phone with access to satellites and so many agencies listening in and viewing what you view, and especially being in the media because you have to address so many subjects. I do smile at it, and I think, oh, well, they're onto that. I find it a bit of a game, sometimes amusing.
Maybe that's the way to look at it.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. Yeah. I found it annoying at times.
Exactly, because it can become invasive, especially if you're not in the mood to read it.
That's right, and I think you'll find it was because of this particular way that the phones were set up, or not set up correctly, that's why people were getting these advertisements, because of the locations data and it wasn't set correctly on the phone. So I think you'll find now that things will change when you use your phone if you can get your privacy settings done correctly.
But if you're looking at certain commercials which then influence them to influence your phone, what else are they looking at?
Yes,
so
exactly.
This is just the icing on the cake. So perhaps I shouldn't be taking it so lightheartedly.
Well, I think you've said it quite well, that this is the the start, perhaps,
it's only
of more
going
cases.
To get worse,
yes, because the ACCC's won, so they're now going to be looking for other things that perhaps are misleading and deceptive towards consumers in the operation of Android devices. So we might be seeing more cases coming out.
And I think the other thing we need to understand is too that this technology is there. It's always there in the background, and you have to just remember that. And you've said this so many times on this program before that they can watch you, and they certainly do watch you, and you need to at least be aware of that when you're interacting with people and interacting with your phone, etc.
I think the responsibility goes both ways.
Yep.
If you've got a device like this, a phone, it's a responsibility as the user to use it correctly within your knowledge. How do you gain that knowledge? It's the responsibility of the company that sells you the device to explain to you how to use and operate the device.
As we're talking about it, we're reminded of it, but it's a subject that we really should be talking about every day of every week, because otherwise it just gets away and more influencing comes in.
I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
All right, well, as usual, a fascinating topic, and thank you for... Actually, just before we go, any idea how much Google will have to pay?
No, that's what we were saying before.
Okay,
We don't
so
know the penalties yet.
Millions, obviously. Hundreds of millions. Would you like to have a guess?
We'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe that's what they're waiting for, to then decide if they're going to appeal it.
All right, well, time will tell. Interesting story. Thanks for that, Despina. And next week you'll be back with more hot topics. And once again, if you have any questions that you would like Despina to answer for you, you can just send them in an email to breakfast@radio97.com.au. And of course, there are plenty of other ways to get in contact with you too.
That's right. So they can ring our office, 55 291 294, and talk to myself or my lovely staff. They can go online, prialalegal.com.au, or they can visit the YouTube channel where all of these shows have our videos put on. And that's it.
And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.